Groovy and Introduction. This is Lecture 8 of Section 3. Let's begin. In this lecture, we will study about Groovy, why we need Groovy, implementing test suites, cases, and steps in SoapUI. We will learn about JVM and SoapUI. We will learn about log files, error, memory, and info log files. All of this followed by a quiz in the end. What is Groovy? Groovy is a dynamically typed language that runs on the Java platform. Although a dynamic language, but it comes with static typing and static compilation capabilities. Thanks to the concise and familiar syntax, it multiplies the developer's productivity manyfold. Groovy can serve as a scripting language for developers new to the Java platform and can also be useful for veteran Java developers who are interested in enhancing the expediency and flexibility of that language. Why do we need Groovy? Groovy is termed as a scripting and testing glue because it's great for writing concise and maintainable tests. Hence, testing is an area where its advantages really shine. Also, where making experiments like trying a new language is low risk. Groovy is great for writing unit tests for existing Java code. It seamlessly and transparently integrates and interoperates with Java and any third-party libraries. It reduces the amount of code needed to do common tasks such as parsing XML files and accessing databases. While learning Groovy, you can also mix in straight Java code, which is really nice since it allows you to ease into Groovy at your own pace while delivering functional code. If you've been using Java for a while, I think you'll appreciate the simplicity of using Groovy since you can program more functionality using less keystrokes. Now we'll discuss test suites, cases, steps in SoapUI. We'll define them. SoapUI structures functional tests into three levels, which are test suites, test cases, and test steps. Test suite is a collection of test cases that can be used for grouping function tests into logical units. Any number of test suites can be created inside a SoapUI project to support massive testing scenarios. Test case is a collection of test steps that are assembled to test some specific aspect of your service. You can add any number of test cases to a containing test suite and even modularize them to call each other for complex testing scenarios. And finally, test steps are the building blocks of function tests in SoapUI. They are added to a test case and used to control the flow of execution and validate the functionality of the services to be tested. Test suites are created at the project level for grouping test cases into logical units. For example, if you have a banking system to test, you might have one test suite for account-related test cases and another for test cases related to payments. You double-click on the project node and then you get to see the test suites tab. Your project can contain any number of test suites and you can see and execute them all from the project test suites tab. Now, to create a new test suite, you can either go to the project menu and you click on new test suite, or you can click on the corresponding button on top of the list of the test suites, which is this. If you click on it, it asks you to specify a name for the test suite. You give a particular name and then you click OK. This is your first test suite which is created and contains a test case. The test suite can contain any number of test cases which can be executed either in sequence or parallel from the test suite window. Creating test cases is performed in the same manner as creating test suites, that you can either create it from the containing test suite pop-up, the new test case, or with the corresponding button which is given here. You click on this, you assign the test case a particular name, and here is your first test case which is created. Now a test case can contain any arbitrary number of test steps which are configured to validate the functionality of your target service. For example, a test case in the test suite for payments mentioned before might validate a certain type of payment by first performing it and then checking the contents of the database for the updated data. Opening a test case, like we just did, reveals a similar view as that of the test suite, containing a list of contained test steps together with the action selected. Because this is our first test suite for this project, we will create the test steps ourselves. Here are the test steps, and here are the options for creating the test steps. Like you can create a test request step, you can create a REST test request step, and so on and so forth. So first we'll create a SOAP test request. You give it a name, you click OK. It is going to ask you to select an operation defined in the visitor, and you select the operation. For example, we'll select get city forecast by zip, and you click OK, and then you click OK again. So this is the test request editor. We can cross it for now, and here you can see your first test request step has been added. You can add more steps, select another different operation, click OK, and there you can see now you have two test steps. In this test case 1. Now when a test case is executed, the contained test steps are run in the displayed order, branching or looping as configured by the dedicated test steps or the script. Now how do we execute them? Now all of these views that I have shown you have toolbar at the top with buttons executing containing test items, which is this. This runs the test suite, this runs the test case, this runs the test steps. Now in case of the test suite and the test cases, these can be executed either in sequence or parallel as displayed. Now if we press this button, and then we press this button, we can see that the progress bar immediately shows the current execution status and is colored either green or red depending on the test outcome. In this case our test was successful, so it turned green. Now since the exact number of execution steps are not known due to the scripting possibilities, the progress bar might not always show a number or value that is in line with the number of steps that you've executed. Now all the views, they also contain an execution log in the bottom showing the details of the test step execution. And then you can see there are various details about that test step and the test case and the test suite itself. Items in this list can be double clicked to show more details on the actual execution. This is the actual execution of the test step. Depending on the type of test step, different information is shown. Also, if the underlying data has been discarded from the memory, it will not be available for viewing. As now we are done with the test suite and test case execution, we are familiar with it to quite an extent. Let's have a look at the log files that are present in SOAP UI and that can help you with testing. There is a SOAP-UI log file that if you click on it, it will give you the details of all the steps that you've taken since you've created your project. So that if you make any mistake, you can look back to it and you can match it. Then we have an error log file which will obviously list the errors during the execution of the project or the execution of the test cases, because we did not make any errors right now. There were no errors, so this is empty right now. And then we have a memory log which shows the runtime memory consumption. This is the runtime memory consumption when you were making the test cases and test suites, and we're doing all the operations on it. Now it's time for the quiz. Question 1. Define test cases and test steps. Question number 2. What are some of the benefits of Groovy? Mention at least 3. The answer to the questions are: test case is a collection of test steps that are assembled to test some specific aspect of your service, and test steps are the building blocks of functional tests in SOAP-UI. Question number 2. What are some of the benefits? Groovy is great for writing concise and maintainable tests. It has smooth Java integration. It reduces the amount of code needed to do common tasks. And while learning Groovy, you can also always mix in straight Java code. This is the end of the quiz. It also marks the end of lecture 8. Thank you.